Bob, it's Mike Gross.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, just for my understanding of what you've done with the team wrestling thing. Mark said that the individual wrestling normally ends 2 weeks before the state basketball final, so that would be somewhere around March 13th is the plan.
Yes.
And then then team wrestling will occur sometime between March 13th and March 27th.
Yes, or
That's the plan. That's the plan. I mean, I realize you don't know exactly, but
or another week later. I know
it could
that
be after the 27th.
I know that's we're just looking at site availability. So if it was something that came up with a Monday, Tuesday, we would look at that. So
Monday, Tuesday after the 27th.
yes, just because that's Easter week, we don't want to get into that weekend, but we're trying to assess site availability, and we know that there's some scheduling conflicts with the Giant Center and some other places. So that's where we are today. I can't give you a definitive, but
I just want to make sure I understood
put everything on the table for discussion.
Right. And now I have another one.
Yeah.
If the return to play is not January 4th, would these practice schedule, I guess, that you adopted today, would that still apply? Like that would
today, yes, Mike.
Yeah.
As of today, yes. But as you know, we're probably the board's going to meet again January 6th.
Okay.
That's what we decided last board meeting. So the reason we picked the 6th was to monitor what's coming on the 4th.
Right. But what you did today is not necessarily contingent on you restarting on the 4th. That's my question.
Say again.
What you adopted today about practice restrictions, that could still apply if you start on the 15th.
Possibly. We'll have to see. We're planning on the 4th. That's the information we have today.
Okay, so you will rethink this on the 6th if you're restarting on the 15th.
If we need to adjust.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Mike.
Dr. Lombardi, at what point would a delay prompt like major schedule changes beyond March 27th or there around? Is there like a start date for winter sports where you guys think you're going to have to really extend into April?
We, by changing all the deadlines that we have, right now we have given maximum flexibility. At this time, there's no sentiment to go past the winter deadlines. We do not, because of what occurred last spring, no one wants to negatively impact the spring sports season.
I guess I'll keep going then. Another question, very briefly, we heard approval from the board to continue with litigation against the Commonwealth. Is that in relation to the right to know law? And what can you tell us about the exemption PIAA is seeking?
Well, the board feels that PIAA is the only nonprofit corporation that is in the right to know law. We are not a state established entity, and the legislation seems to single us out as an association. So those three pieces there, we feel that we need to have addressed.
What parts of the right to know law are concerning? What could be requested under right to know that the PIAA does not believe people should have access to?
That's not what the suit, we're not worried about access, and I don't think anyone that's asked for anything, we haven't provided it to them. But when we get frivolous requests of over 8 years for every possible check that's ever been written by 12 different districts and headquarters, we think that's obscene. And what purpose does it serve? But if you were looking for a request no different than you've asked for, we've accommodated those. We want to be treated like every other association.
Yeah, I guess I'm still, as you know, learning some of these laws. So there are rules that nonprofits have certain disclosures, which you guys would still follow. It's just the nature of how long people can request right to know documents.
No, that's not, I think I illustrated the three tenements that we're looking at. That
Okay,
we're
thank
the
you.
only nonprofit, that we feel we've been singled out under equal protection, and that the we are, PIAA is an association of member schools, and we were not developed by, as a state entity by the legislature. So there are 3 points that we believe why we fall outside of that.
Dr. Lombardi, Bob Greenberg.
Yeah, Bob.
On that same note, the right to know law was passed in 2009. Why has it taken the PIAA this long to challenge it, or have you challenged it before and not had any success?
Well, Bob, in 2009, we did not know we were named in it. That was one of those times that the budget was passed well after midnight. I think it was around 2 a.m. And we learned subsequently that we were named in it. Obviously, we've worked hard administratively to try to get relief to no avail at this point, because we wanted to work through the process and not go into court for a lot of reasons. One, cost. Two, we didn't want to give people the impression that we don't feel that we adhere to these things, and we do. We feel that we should be treated like every other state, other association, including the principals and superintendents, and they don't seem to be named in there. So that's why it took some time, Bob, because we wanted to work through the legislative processes that were available to us to see if we could come up with a remedy.
Bob, Mike White,
Mike,
how you doing? Two questions. First off, I just want to make sure I have this part right. If things start up January 4th, no matter what, no matter how many practices any teams have had, they can't even scrimmage until the 9th. Am I right on that?
no, I don't think that's right, Mike. I think we said if somebody completed their fall preseason and they could have as few as 4, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they could play Friday night. That was the intent, to try to capture that weekend for people, to give them the maximum amount of weekends towards the 27th as possible, to provide as much flexibility for scheduling to schools as we could under the parameters that we have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm saying a scrimmage. They can't scrimmage. I know the first day they could play a game or competition would be the 9th.
The 8th.
But 4th, 5th, the 8th, I'm sorry, Friday the 8th. I'm sorry, Friday the 8th. But they can't scrimmage if they've on the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th.
No, they can't.
They can't. Okay. They cannot.
They cannot. They have to have 4 days of practice prior to any activity,
Okay.
whether it is scrimmage or a contest.
Okay.
And again, we're trying to grab the weekend for them to give them as much flexibility as possible.
Second question. I know, a lot of us don't like to get in the prediction business, and I'm not asking you to predict, but do you have any feelings at all? Because a lot of people want to know. You are the head of the PIAA. Are any feelings whether you're optimism that we might be able to return January 4th and cautiously, any feelings that you have gotten at all?
Well, Mike, I have a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
And here at the Christmas season, I maybe have more than usual. But, seriously, I think the best answer I can give you at this time is this. We're taking the information that we received at their word. And I think they used their best judgment to come up with that date, for how they came up with that date. And we're going to work off that date as an anchor. And then if by chance it moves or becomes fluid, I think we believe that we will be able to get the most current information on the 6th. And if we need to adjust it, we will. We're hopeful that it starts because it gives schools the most optimum number of days to possibly get a winter schedule in, which now without negatively impacting spring.
Okay.
Does that help? I think I lost you. I see you. I don't see you there.
Yeah, I'm on phone. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I know you were probably eating a brownie or something.
No, Melissa X'd me out. I couldn't get back in.
Dr. Lombardi, when you say you don't want to negatively impact the spring, how much consideration is being given to the fact that students didn't have a spring season last year, but we could have the same situation with winter should this closure continue through February?
Not sure I'm understanding your question. You started about spring and then you wanted to talk about winter. Help me out.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry for the confusion. I guess, so spring in last year did not have a season. I know we all feel for those athletes. It could be a similar situation if the closure extends for winter sports, right? They could only get a month or maybe not anything. Is there any situation where the PIAA would consider shortening both winter and spring so that both athletes can get a chance? Or is it really we want to have a spring season at all costs almost?
Allie, I think that's nothing more than a premature conjecture on my part. I think what we're doing here is taking facts that we were told that we could possibly start on the 4th and operating off that information given. We took it in good faith. And as things go forward, if they change, we will adapt and try to provide as much as we can. I think by erasing the regular season, district, and deadlines, and allowing play all the way to the 27th, we have put a parameter around winter to possibly give them the maximum amount of opportunity to get a schedule in. Therefore, we would move forward into the spring as per schedule if the dates hold serve of what we were given.
Thank you.
This is Jake from the Sentinel again.
Okay?
Hey, it does seem to, though, put athletic directors, coaches, and some players in a bind to have the winter regular season extended to March 27th, because that's traditionally a lot of spring practice season. So, isn't this already going to condense or impact in some way how spring rosters work, how spring schedules will work? Because now winter coaches might be trying to fight for time to get more games in, while spring coaches are trying to fight for time just to get practices in with the same groups of boys and girls.
Well, I think you're making an assumption there that they're all the same kids playing the same sports. We can't make that assumption, Jake. I think that's a pretty big stretch. Pretty big.
I mean, okay, so maybe that's not the case across every single school in the state, but I can talk specifically in this county, and we have dozens, if not hundreds, of kids that play both winter sports and spring sports. So it's not like it's a fleeting few. There are a lot of kids that crossover between both seasons. We have several schools in this area alone who have 3-sport athletes. So this isn't a rarity that I'm talking about. This is a very common thing. I would imagine that this could put some strain on coaches and ADs to figure out the right balance between winter sports games and spring sports preseason and possibly early regular season games.
Well, again, you're making a big assumption, and I'm not sure I share that, but the same token is we're only talking about winter as we speak. We haven't even made an assessment of spring sports if we can or will even discuss the opportunity to move that deadline back. So that's to be determined, and I think sitting here on December 22nd, trying to make that conjecture about spring is well premature.
Dr. Lombardi, what's the likelihood that team wrestling state tournament is not held at the Giants Center, and what are the other options?
I can't answer that today, Mitch. I don't have an answer for that today. However, I can say that we're going to put everything on the table to possibly have a team champion because it's important to the membership. When I spoke to when we met as a wrestling steering committee, it was the consensus of the committee that we want to make all efforts that we can. So I think what the board did today provides us maximum flexibility. So stay tuned.
Because so many of the earlier rounds are being wrestled at school sites this year, is it, I don't want to use the word unnecessary, but is it unnecessary to have a facility as big as the Giants Center to host the final rounds of that team tournament?
Well, it depends on what you want for your final. Do you want to have spectators? I think there's a whole host of things in there to let mom and dad come in, and you have to have a little bit of a different answer that if you make the decision that the other sporting groups have said we're not going to have spectators or no moms and dads. So that's to be determined. And I don't know anybody that has drawn up. You're saying that you already know of people that have a schedule of what their postseason is going to look like. I haven't heard that at this time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Bob, Pat Pritzby, how are you?
Good, Pat.
Conjecture has been the key word, I think, in this little session today. And this may be a little conjecture as well, but is there a minimum number of weeks that you could have a viable spring season and not go past that March 27th, end date?
I'm sorry, Pat, you broke up on my.
Now, I'm just curious, is there a minimum number of weeks for a winter sports season that you could have and not go into the, cross the March 27th deadline? I guess, could you have a 3-week season, 2-week? Is that, any thought been given to that?
Well, that's to be determined. That's why we did what we did today, is trying to shorten the ability to return to play from practice by giving schools a minimum max so that they can optimize opportunity of as many play dates as possible. So, you can look at the calendar yourself there off the 4th, and if you had no preseason at all and you need 10 days, and you could open up on the 15th, and it gives you some time to get through even the month of February pretty healthy. So I think we've maximized the opportunity today.
Okay,
Dr. Tom Reisover, how you doing?
Good, Tom.
I had a quick question. I might have missed this in your answer earlier. Was there just for the lawsuit, was there a request recently that kind of prompted you guys to do this lawsuit, or was it just something that you had to get to eventually?
Well, we fielded in the last couple years, Tom, we had one request that had over 121 requests inside of the one request. That's offensive. And out of those 121 items in it, there were 2 and 3 different parts to each. This last request we have is overbearing in my opinion. It serves no purpose.
Great, thank you.
So it pushed the envelope.
Dr. Lombardi, Joby Fawcett, how are you?
Hey, Joe.
I actually may have to direct this question to Melissa. We haven't really discussed swimming in terms of changing dates. Clearly, the venue is a concern at this point. Are we thinking about reducing it to a 2-day meet? And what are some options that we have with swimming moving forward?
Yes, we have had some preliminary discussions as staff about a 2-day swimming meet, having diving on either a separate weekend or a separate day altogether. So we probably will have to look at that schedule pretty closely once we know more from Bucknell, as to if we can be there, how many days we can be there, et cetera. So yes, Joby, we are willing to look at some adjustments. And I think what helps us go to 2 days is the fact that the board's already approved a reduction in qualifiers. So I think that could certainly be done in 2 days.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Bob, Keith Grower from the Morning Call.
Hey, Keith, how you doing?
Hey, good to see you. Your thoughts as we come to the end of this year? We're doing a lot of year-end stories, and obviously the pandemic is the #1 story, easily of the year. But just your thoughts, what you've learned. Taking a lot of slings this year, a lot of arrows pointed your direction. You know that, including from Bethlehem here in the Lehigh Valley. But just your thoughts on what you've learned and what your message might be going forward for student athletes.
Well, I think the board has shown that they are advocates and supporters of student athletes, and that it was important for us to make our best efforts to give every opportunity that we could for student athletes to participate. I think you heard that loud and clear in May, and it came loud and clear through the summer. And I think the biggest lesson we learned in the fall that you have seen not only in high school associations, but also at collegiate conferences, that by starting early and trying to get as much as you can, as early as possible, being prepared for a hiccup, that you can maximize the schedule and try to get something done for student athletes. It's important to them. It's important to their health. It's important to their mental health. Yes, I've heard some of the criticism from Bethlehem, but that's a very ill-advised, misinformed person that has nothing to do to take pot shots at people instead of picking up the phone and having a professional discussion. People like that, there's nothing you can do to change their mind, because obviously they're small-minded.
But you feel going into this coming year, I mean, obviously, we're seeing these vaccinations. I've never seen so many needles in my life. But it's a good thing. It's a positive thing. We're seeing it. I don't necessarily like when they stick a needle in my arm, but I think you have to feel for the athletes. Things are going to turn around, and we're going to get that opportunity to have the seasons we want to have going forward.
Keith, I've said this before. I think the only mistake we could have made is if we didn't try. And we tried. And we were successful through the fall. And we want to try again in the winter, because we believe student athletes deserve the full athletic and academic experience of the school day. You know, you can't play athletics without getting your academics solidified. That's the one of our first prerequisites. Minimum academics, health, your SIPI form, the mom and dad sign off, all the things that go with that. Our athletes, we believe, deserve that because different than a collegiate experience, high school athletic eligibility is not a do-over. Once your 4 years are done, you're done. And you can't get it back. So by saying that, I think it's important that we try, as we said, if we can only get 90% of the state, so be it. If we can get 70%, fine. But those students need to have our best efforts to try to give them the items that are important to them in the school day, and athletics is part of that, and activities, band, cheer front, competitive spirit, the people the young ladies and young men that are in the theater. Those things are all important activities for them. And a lot of them, it's an integral part of the school day that keeps them on the straight and narrow, that helps them be leaders to tell other boys and girls to say, hey, look it, we can't mess up here. Let's stay safe. Let's work through the bubble. Let's take care of each other so we can at least have the interscholastic experience.
Thank you, Bob. Have a great holiday season.
You too, Keith, and watch those. Watch the needles, man.
Dr. Lombardi, it's Bob Greenberg again.
Yeah.
A question. Has there been any discussion by the competition committee about revising the success factor? And I guess my points are, one, in football, we had schools like Cathedral Prep make it to the state finals without playing more than just winning just one game. And the basketball state brackets that were released, you're going to have teams entering at different spots, quarterfinals, state semifinals, first round, which would not be the original intent of the success factor. Has there been any discussion about revising that here this cycle?
Obviously, we've had our other issues to deal with. We really haven't had an opportunity to re-meet as the competition committee. Hopefully, as we turn the new year, we'll be able to do some things. There was a challenge of our competition formula that we prevailed on very strongly in the court system. So that formula has stood the test of time, and the intent and the appropriateness that the board has gone through the process with it. But we haven't had the opportunity to revisit some of the items. I'm sure we might end up tweaking some things here and there, but that's to be determined as we move forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
You got it. Take care, Bob. Folks, that's about it for me. Appreciate it. Hopefully you have great holidays. Hopefully you all stay safe and have Happy New Year's. Look forward to seeing you in 2021. It has to be better than this last 9 months. This has been brutal, I think, on all of you as well as all of us. But we wish you well, and thank you for your attendance and being part. You're an important part of us because you help us spread the word of interscholastic education and sports and athletics and the good things that young people are doing. So thanks a lot. Have a good holiday season, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.